Hello and welcome to our weekly share on the Parsha with the commentary of the Alshich. This is going to be a little shorter, I think, than the normal share. I must apologize. My wife lost her father last Shabbos, and we were in California for the Levaya on Tuesday morning. We only get back on Wednesday. And as you probably understand, in the Shiva house, which is what this is, it's a little bit difficult to fulfill all the normal regular obligations like getting the Alshich on time anytime and on my YouTube channel. So I do apologize. So obviously, normally I say that if you would like to sponsor the share, it's yy@rabbiyyy.com is my email address. Please write to me saying that there's a celebration, hopefully, or a commemoration, and we will obviously dedicate the share in the memory or in the name of the person you suggest. But more than that, this week obviously is the share is going to be dedicated in the memory of my truly wonderful father-in-law that I loved enormously and respected immensely, an extremely, extremely talented, clever man. Was a professor of engineering and physics at Stanford University. Family originally from Hungary. He was brought up in the Bronx, very successful in his field, eventually ending up in the West Coast and in the city of Palo Alto in Silicon Valley, where so many Jews went and lost their whole Jewish identity. But he was a man who was wore tefillin every morning, even in his very last years when his dementia was really quite marked. He would still wear his tefillin every morning, and he was a Dafa Yomi man. Learned Talmud every day as well. So truly a remarkable person. Yonasan Binyamin, Ben Yaakov. Yonasan Binyamin, Ben Yaakov, his neshama should have an aliyah. This week's parsha is the parsha of Toldos. Previous parsha is the passing away of Sari Mena. It talks about Yishmael's children, various other themes, but this one is very, very different and very, very crucial ideas. And I really do hope that at least the critical ones, as they do affect you and I, particularly if you're a woman, then I think with a bit of luck, we'll get at least the crucial ones in here. So as we normally do, I'll turn to the art scroll Parshas Toldos. If you have one at home or just look at the Chumash, this is a good moment to pause the video and then go get hold of it. I say because of timing, I didn't put one up on the screen for you to see. But it says the following thing: the Toldos Yitzchak. These are the generations of Yitzchak, ben Avrohom, who was the son of Avrohom. So it's going to tell you Yitzchak's children, and tells you that Yitzchak was the son of Avrohom. Really, Yitzchak ben Avrohom, and then it says Avram Holidas Yitzchak. Avram was the father of Yitzchak. So, I mean, the obvious question is, why does it repeat it? Well, first of all, why does it tell us that Yitzchak was the son of Avram? We know that. We've been going through the Parshas together or on your own, and this is an obvious statement, so why does it have to say it again? Remember the rule. God never says, oops, there are no mistakes. There are no extra words, extra letters in the whole of the Torah. And here we've got a whole expression which is utterly superfluous, or seems so, but God doesn't say oops. So the Alshich is going to ask that question. But Toldos Yitzchak, this generation of Yitzchak ben Avram, in case you thought it was Yitzchak McDonald. Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram, and Avram Holidas Yitzchak, and Avram was the father of Yitzchak. And immediately I'm going to quickly tell you what Rashi says there. And Rashi says, because it was the case that the Litzoni Hador, the mockers and scoffers, the cynics and the skeptics of the generation, then they turned around and said the following thing: no, the father of Yitzchak wasn't Avram. They've been married for what and how long were they married? Well, Yitzchak was born when Avram's 100. They've been married forever. She never conceived. But when Avimelech, the king, steals her, kidnaps her away, she spends one night in his palace. And even though we all know that because Hashem sent all sorts of nasty diseases, he wasn't able to go anywhere near her, despite that fact, there will still, the accusers, the cynics, the fake news people of those days will immediately turn around and say, aha, The real father is Abimelech. So because they would say such a thing, then at that point, Hashem changes. What did Ma also Kadosh Baruch Hu? Then what did Hashem do? Two interesting things. Tsar Kalas the Ponav Shel Yitzchak Demel Avram. He changed, even though Yitzchak was born, he changes the face of Yitzchak to look exactly like the face of Avram, which is interesting because remember, it says, it's going to say in the next pasuk, that when he takes her, when he marries Rivka, he was 40 years of age. So that means that Yitzchak had his own facial features, which may have resembled his father. But it was only when he was 40 that a transformation, a miracle occurs, and the face becomes the same face. So there is no doubt whatsoever that Avram is the father of Yitzchak. That's the first thing Hashem does. So yes, Adamla Avram, v'heidu kol Avram halitzah. So everybody would say that Avram was the father of Yitzchak. But then because the kind of says the Yitzchak ben Avram, Shari Eidos Yeshlu there because it was prophet. Why does it here? That's why it says that Yitzchak was the son of Avram. It's making a statement. Something happened. The miracles happened. Look, everybody was saying he's the son of Avram. You can see the faces the same. Shari Eidos Yeshlu Avram halitzah Yitzchak. Fine. So therefore, that would be the answer to why it says Avram halitzah Yitzchak. That's what people were saying, and also it says Yitzchak ben Avram. So that's why that is emphasizing the fact. So two things, extra words in the Torah that testify to a miracle that happened. That's according to Rashi. But let's read on, and the next pasuk is going to be crucial for us as well. And I see this zooming in here, so I'm going to turn off the light because it's a bit too bright, I think. I'm going to try and turn off the light because it's also a strange thing. All right. Hopefully that will be better, and we won't get too much flickering. Oh, that's a better picture. Right. It does show you this is live, and I did tell you it was a little bit unprepared. Anyway, so the next thing the pasuk says, "Vayhi Yitzchak ben Abraham Shana," and Yitzchak was 40 years of age. V'kaftos Rivka bas Basuel, when he takes Rivka, bas Basuel, the daughter of Basuel, Harami, the Aramite, the cheat, the swindler, Padan Aram, from Padan Aram, Achaz Lavan, who was the sister of Lavan, Harami, the Aramite, swindler, Loyla Isha, to him as a wife. And then there's the famous bit, V'yeta Yitzchak l'Hashem l'nochach ishtay. And Yitzchak prays and petitions Hashem l'nochach ishtay, toward his wife. He directs Hashem, he prays Hashem towards his wife. And the Rashi says there, what that means is that the Yitzchak stood in one corner of the room, and Rivka stood in the other corner of the room, and they both davened together, so they're as it were facing each other, which the Alshich is going to be profoundly unhappy with. That's really all we're going to analyze now. There's so much, and really it's very, very important it's so important, I might come back to this again next week, which we've never done before. But as you noticed when I put up 2 extra Alshich shiurs recently about the Torah Bovel, it wasn't in the Parsha when it was read. It was just so important that the principles, the Alshich, the mystical Kabbalistic principles, the Alshich says there should be shared. I might well do a whole special shiur to continue this thing, even if we don't get it in here. And even if it was a normal week and I had plenty of time, there's so much important stuff. I might welcome back to that. So you might have 2 Alshich shiurim for next week. So let me point out the obvious questions. If Rashi is right, and Hashem changes the face of Yitzchak to look like Avram, so the skeptics and the cynics would not say that the father, because that's the problem, the father of Yitzchak was Abimelech, not Sarah, not Avram, then if that is the case, well, why didn't he change his face when he was born? Why wait till he's 40 years of age? It says that he takes her when she's 40 years, and this is when this happens. Why is it critical here when he's 40 years of age? Let me just read that again. To be able to tell the Yitzchak ben Avram, Avram holad his Yitzchak, first pasuk, and then by Yitzchak ben Avram Shana, the character is Rivka, and he was 40 when he took Rivka, Bas Basil Harami. So why is it so critical when he's 40 years of age? Let me read to you what the Alshich says here, and I'm going to share a page. I did manage to get a little bit of a page to share with you, so I'll come to that in a second, and I'll try and remember to unshare so we can actually see each other. He says the following thing. The answer is like this. As Rashi says, the skeptics and the cynics, the fake news nicks of those particular days, made this accusation against Avrohom and against Sarah when Yitzchak was born, but nobody credited it. Nobody paid attention to it because it was a wild accusation that nobody actually believed. So, says the Alshich, and he says, now there's a very interesting psychological thing here. And why did people refuse to believe it? For a very simple reason, because Avram and Sarah were so great in the eyes of everyone, they just didn't want to believe it. Now, this is critical. I have to tell you that I heard just the other day an accusation against somebody I know. He's a doctor who has been accused by one of his patients of doing an investigation, a female patient, obviously, which was unnecessary. And of course, once somebody makes a complaint, the machinery of complaining goes in. He was arrested, and so on and so forth. Somebody here in America. Now, I happen to have known this person for a very long time. And to tell you the truth, I'm extremely fond of this person. And I think as a combination of both those factors, I simply do not believe it. Could it happen? Of course it happened. Could happen. Do these things happen? Of course they happen. Did it happen in this case? I simply don't believe it. Now, I suppose you could say, but that's ridiculous because it could happen. Rubenstein said it could happen. Yes, I know, but it also could not happen. It might not have happened. And because of my affection for the fellow and the fact that I know this fellow for such a long time, I simply don't believe it. I would need evidence. And of course, you're going to say, yeah, this is he said, she said. It's very hard, even when these things are true, to prove. But I still don't believe it. And if I'm guilty of prejudice or bias on the basis that this person is a seriously wonderful person, in my estimation and in my experience for decades, then I'll accept that. And I would say to you, prove it. I think that was the attitude of the people of that generation. Okay, people, the skeptics, the cynics, because there's always nasty people there saying, oh, Abimelech, he's the father, 100 years or 99 years, no conception from Avrohom. Nobody believed it. So what changed? And what changed at the age of 40? So he says, very interestingly, he says, Ato Berezki nolad Esav Rivka. But now when people saw that Esav was born, that Rivka gave birth to an Esav, then they thought, maybe there's something to this. And it's not like in the previous generation when Yishmael has a brother, Yitzchak has got a brother called Yishmael. Yeah, you get sort of like two brothers who can be exact opposites. So Yitzchak is Yitzchak and Yishmael is Yishmael, but they had two different mothers. But Esav and Yaakov have the same mother. So the problem has to stem from Rivka. Or maybe it stems from Avrohom. Maybe it stems from Avrohom, that he wasn't really the father, but the real father was Avimelech, and therefore that's why Yitzchak could produce a child who is such a particularly wicked person as Esav. That the arrival of Esav on the scene from Yitzchak and Rivka, that raised questions. The alarm bell started to ring. Flags went up. And then people saying, maybe what people were saying 40 years before, maybe there's some reality to that. So let's read on a little bit further. Very strong language of Be'elshov that allowed the skeptics and the cynics to return to their vomit. That's very interesting. Character and assassination, the Alshich uses the word kia, vomit. So their vomit kia may Abimelech, the servant Sarah, to say that no, Sarah would become pregnant through Abimelech, and therefore the knowledge of Yitzchak, and therefore Yitzchak the son of that, Alkain Yotzim Mene Esav, and that would give a logical progression. It's in the genes, it's in the culture, it's in the upbringing to have produced an Esav. And you can certainly imagine that people would think that, but certainly they would think that because the love, the affection that they have for this person is so intense that it just completely revolts them that the previous picture they have of Avram and Sarah could possibly have produced a Yitzchak who could have produced an Esau. Okay, that's why now When Rivka gets pregnant, at this stage in their life, that's when the Torah has to tell us that Hashem testifies, changes the face of Yitzchak to be the same of Avrohom. At that stage in his life, at the stage in his life when his sons are born, his twin sons are born, that's when there has to be a miraculous intervention to stop this accusation, because that's when the accusation now has teeth, or I think the phrase is now has feet. It certainly has now has got credibility. And he says all that is the normal understanding of the rabbis to explain this, but says the Alshich, I'd like to go a little bit deeper, and so shall we. So I'm not going to share the screen with you. And here is the Alshich himself, or the commentary of the Alshich himself, which we will look in and be able to see it. Sorry, usually we've got this horrible delay before it pops up. When I always bite my teeth, is it going to pop up? And of course, it always does. Doesn't stop me worrying, but that's just because I'm a worrier. Good. Okay. Right. And incidentally, I don't know why I said that, but it popped a thought into my mind. And just if it's any use to anybody who might be going through difficult times at the moment, I remember Ramatziel Solomon, the Mashgiach then of Gateshead, and now, of course, of Lakewood himself is very not well. But many years ago, when my wife was going through, I think, her third battle with cancer, he came to visit her, and I was quite a mess. And going down the stairs together, he said, Yehudiyaina, sometimes a husband has to be a warrior, spelt with an A. And I thought it was very clever. So that popped into my mind. And maybe if it popped into my mind, it was so it should pop out and be of use to somebody listening. Anyway, here are the questions. You can see my little dashes here. There's going to be 5 questions we shall look at. But I don't remember he Yitzchak. So it says, when it comes to the second possible, Yitzchak ben Arbaim Shana. He was 40 years of age, Rivka, when he took Rivka. And so let's see what he says there. Why is it that should have told us when they get married. Why is it telling us now that he was 40 years of age when he married Rivka? This is much later. 2 decades have passed, when the children are going to be born, when the 2 sons are going to be born. So why does it say that, oh yeah, incidentally, they're having children, and 2 decades or so ago they get married, and he was 40 when they get married. Shouldn't it tell us he was 40 when he get married? When he get married? When he actually married her? Shouldn't the Torah have told us that then? 2, what benefit do we have by learning he was 40 years of age when he married Rivka? How does that help us at all? And when it talks about her background, her family, etc., why does it have to tell us that? We've been told that before. There's no repetition. As he says, that's already been said. But another question for Isha said, he took her, loy to him as an Isha. Kimilas loy is means the extra word to him is extra. Should just he took her as a wife. We took her to him as a wife. What's the to him? God doesn't make mistakes like this. But now it says that they entreated. Why does it say lenochach ishtoi? Opposite his wife. Stop sharing. Back to me. So here we come to some incredibly important ideas. So let me read to you some of the Alshich, and we're not doing that with the screen sharing, so I can hopefully speed this a little bit up. So that it shouldn't revolt you or upset you that Yitzchak could be the father of an Esau. And not only that, leaving aside that he produced a child who was no good, leaving that aside, why was it so difficult for him to produce that child, or any child, both of the children, I should say, both of his sons? Why did it take so many decades in order to achieve that? Why do you need so much prayer in order for that to occur? And the answer is that, sorry, I'm making a video, dear. That's my wife. So basically, I can't stop. And so basically, he says, so why so many prayers? And the answer is Al Kain Kabona Torasena Hakadosha Haski Ata Yehusa Ashahi Bas Basul Harami Achas Lovan Arami. So one very interesting answer is that it's because of that background when it states her family, which is a repetition. That's to tell you why it needed so much prayer and so much intervention. Now this is crucial, very, very important idea. Normally the answer is, Rashi supplies this answer, the classic answer, that a person, a tzaddik is often requested to make prayer, to pray a lot to Hashem, because Hashem wants the prayers of tzaddikim. That's what the Gemara says. But what does that mean, Hashem wants? Wants means needs. I want it. I need something. Hashem doesn't need anything. He doesn't need you to pray to him for him. He needs you to pray to him for you. He needs you to pray for you. And that means that you have to pray in order, because there is no way that you can become closer to anybody than when you speak to them. Think of a chosn and kala. A chosn and kala, if you've ever seen a chosn and kala bride the groom to get engaged, then they're never off the phone to each other. They love each other. They just want to be part of every moment of their life. It's the same here. Hashem wants him to be a part of your life, not because he needs it. He needs you to need it. That will bring you closer to Hashem. Now, there's more than that. And we'll see this in just a second when the Alshich expands on this theme. But the crucial factor is that when it comes to connecting with Hashem, there are maybe things that the connection has got to achieve. By connecting to Hashem, you're going to strengthen your relationship with him and negate any factors that would take you away from Hashem, like perhaps having a difficult family background and maybe inheriting all sorts of stuff from your family that you have to, as it were, erase to move forward. And in every family, come to think of it, I suppose that applies. Families are collections of human beings. So there'll be, things that you have to move on from. Parents, keep it up the aim, is to honor your father and your mother. But doesn't mean to say that your mother and mother are perfect. They will make mistakes. You've got to learn from the mistakes and learn from their strengths. Copy the strengths and try not to repeat the mistakes. That could be the reason, says the Alshich, but more than that. Before the Torah says this, before we get to this stage of discussing the background of Rivka, which may have led to Esau, as people will suspect, but we'll see not so in a second. There's another thing. There is a problem. When it talks about her background, it talks about two relationships. As we said before, she was the daughter of somebody who was a cheat, right? Bas Basuel, a cheat and a swindler, and not a nice guy. And not only that, she was the sister of somebody who was not a nice guy. You could say, says the Alshich, something very intriguing. You could say, but hold on a minute. So you're saying the father could be a negative influence that will travel on. And so too could the brother. Well, that could apply also in the case of Yitzchak. Now, Yitzchak's father, Avrohom, he was a tzaddik, but who was his father? He was a very bad person called Terach. And then Yitzchak, Rivka, as we said, has got a brother called Lovan. Maybe he was a bad influence on her. But what would the bad influence that Yitzchak may have got from his brother was called Yishmael. So there's an accusation that could be pointed at both Yitzchak and Rivka that people would be able to rationalize both of them producing an Esau. So he says, okay. Never Koidim called Dover, Omer, Elatah the sits of Ben Avrohom. In order to establish that, it says, these are generations of Yitzchak, Ben Avrohom. The Jewish world begins with Avrohom. Hashem says to him, leave your father's house behind. That was leave the background, like disconnect yourself from your father. It was a command not just to move, but to uproot the negative that your father gave you, and Avram succeeds in that. Yitzchak, the son of Avram, it doesn't extend far back into the life of Terach, Avram's father. And not only that, it then says Avram holadis Yitzchak. Avram holadis Yitzchak, says the Alshich, means that Avram was really only the father of Yitzchak. Yes, he fathered physically Ishmael. However, in fathering Ishmael, Ishmael's not called a son in the way that Yitzchak's called a son. That again, there's a disconnect. So that's to secure that there was no negativity flowing from Yitzchak that could have produced an Esau. What though about Rivka? So if I turn the page and read this bit to you, this is crucial. And he says the following thing: Laval nemer im kain efo lama lekach Yitzchak baser shaim tigram lo pegam. So therefore, if we've now established there's no problem with Yitzchak, and that doesn't therefore offer as an explanation as to why an Esau came into the world, then it must have been Rivka. She was the problem. The problem flowed from her side. We definitely have a horrible father called Basul, a horrible brother called Lavan. That would explain it all. Or would it? When she cries, or when she prays, when she's actually becomes pregnant and she realizes there's something wrong with the pregnancy, or it seems to be something wrong with the pregnancy, she says, Lama ze anarchi. Why am I? Sounds very strange. Why am I? Was it the Kotzker who said, if I am I and you are you, then I am I and you are you. But if I am I because you're you and you're you because I am I, then I'm not I and you're not you. I think you better replace that. If you've not heard that before, you better do replay that again. That's hard. If I am I and you are you, then I am I and you are you. But if I am I because you are you and you are you because I am I, then I'm not I and you're not you. She says, Lama ze anarchi. Why am I? If I am going to be so negatively affected by my father and my brother, and I could not, or I have not been able to, and maybe I won't ever be able to get rid of that, then I'm not I. Then I'm not I. That's what she's crying about. And Chas v'shalom to say such a thing. The whole of the Torah focuses on figures and individuals who came from terrible backgrounds, who had terrible parents, and came from terrible families, and undid it all. A Jew is not fated to repeat the mistakes of the father, to walk in his father's footsteps, his mother's footsteps, not at all. Let me read a little bit on it. I think you can see why this is very crucial now. It's very important to know that ultimately you have your own bechira. And I've got to tell you what Rabbi Desta says here, because this is so very important. And that applies to Rivka's son Esav as well. How could I have had an Esav? She's beating herself up. She's feeling guilty. Maybe I didn't do a good job in parenting. Maybe he was fated to do bad stuff. And Rashi tells us, when she's pregnant with the twin boys, she doesn't know at that stage it is twin boys, when she goes past the Yeshiva Shem and Ever, then one of the children is jumping up and down, and, or it seems the child, she doesn't know it's twins, jumping up and down, wanting to be born to go in and learn Torah, Yaakov. When she passes the place of Avodah Zarah, then again she's got the same physical reaction inside her womb and her stomach, and she thinks that this is, this dual personality type child who wants to do Avodah Zarah. Of course, it's Yaakov wanted to go to Torah, and Esau wanted to go to Avodah Zarah. Esau wanted to go to Avodah Zarah in the womb. Yes, he did. Does that mean he's fated to be bad? So listen to Rabbi Dessler. This is in Mitzvah Mileo Chelik Beis on page 205. Achzeh Bora, but this is clear. Shelo noilad Esav liyas Rasha. Esav was not born to be a Rasha. He was not born to be a Rasha. But if we see many incidents reported in Chazal, in the Talmud and various other classic Jewish books, as I just quoted to you, that say he had an inclination to do nasty stuff, that was his basic nature. Now, what are you going to do with that nature? Turn it into positive or negative? That was his choice. And he was given the tools in order to be able to turn it into positive. He chose. He chose. That's not his mother's fault. And a parent can bring the child up to be perfect, and the child still not be perfect. And there are plenty of examples of that. Let me read a little bit more to you of the Alshich. And he says, as therefore, so Ian, going back a little bit, on the basis that you might have thought that the flaw came from her family, the father who's a rotter and the son who's a rotter, you can ask yourself, why else did he marry her? So here he says something very, very interesting. Although this could be one of two reasons. One, maybe he's just an ordinary young man. I'm going to read this to you. I think this is very interesting. A young man, nar v'rach, young and immature, that because of his youth, he didn't pay any attention to her background, to the culture she came from. He was just, Kigam Yasa Bechurim Lasesina, because the way of young men to put their eyes, to cast their eyes, to just focus on the beauty of the girl, not where she comes from, not what you can anticipate from her background that would have impacted on her and made her into, the sort of person that made her into. He's not interested in what she's like, what she looks like, because young men tend to be a bit focused on the external, not to the internal. So maybe that's the reason that he married the wrong woman, which we just saw in the Alshich, in the Rabbi Des is not true. Or would be another reason that he married somebody who's not appropriate. There was no choice. He lived in a place where there just wasn't anybody. Right? I just like imagine a little shtetl in the whole country, a little village, right? Who are you going to marry? The next village is 10 miles away, and you got to walk there. So it's a girl next door. It's a girl. Right? So maybe that's why he married the wrong woman. Either because he's young and foolish, and a young man who looks only the externals, or there was no choice. So the Alshich says, and you know what? That's not true. Because neither of these two apply to Yitzchak. That's why it says now that the children are born. It's reminding you because Esau's born and people are asking questions. No, he was 40 years of age when he married her. 40 years of age. That's not an immature young man. It's somebody 40, say Chazal, 40 is for Venus, for understanding. He knows to look at the family and the background. And not only that, did he marry somebody, who would just because he didn't go looking? No, he may marry Rivka from a country far away. So he selected, and he davens lanochach ishtoi. He davened, again, I read to the pasuk, and he says, "V'yeta Yitzchak l'Hashem lanochach ishtoi ki akorehi v'yesa loy Hashem." So he says, "V'tar Rivka," and what happens is that he says. Opposite his wife. He's drawing attention to the fact that she is the wife for me. She was the one that you selected for me. There's nothing wrong with her either. She's able. We are able to overcome our background, our heritage, our culture, etc. I was driving in Brooklyn last night, coming back from teaching. And my granddaughter, who's in Gateshead Old Seminary, phoned me, my wonderful Nahama. And she phoned me up and said, Zadie, how are you doing, etc., etc. And I don't know if you've ever driven in Brooklyn, Flatbush and Borough Park at rush hour at nighttime. It's challenging. And somebody drove straight in front of me and you've got to be here to see this. It's fun. It makes Israeli driving look sane, and that takes some believing. And I went, and I said, Nechama, you're Zadie, that's me. Your granddad always has a constant conflict between the Glasgow and the Gateshead. Glasgow is where I was brought up. Gateshead is where I grew spiritually, where my yeshiva, 7 years there. There's always a conflict because sometimes if somebody does that sort of thing, you get angry and stuff like that. That's the Glasgow, the sort of Scottish reaction, road rage, etc. Now there's the Gateshead reaction, the Ventura, the Balmusa. No, that's not the way to react in these cases. You can overcome your background. You can replace the Glasgow with the Gateshead. I certainly would like to imagine that I did such a thing. So there's no problem with Rivka either. She's la nochach ishtoi. I'm dabbling towards, I'm focusing you towards the fact she's my zivug. You made her as the other half of my soul. Indeed, of course, she will have to make a transition. She'll have to overcome, and she did overcome having a terrible family, etc. And she did. Maybe there's an ongoing process for that for all of us. Maybe we're always getting rid of the Glasgow. But still, she's still the other half of the soul. Why, therefore, does it take so long to come along? The Alshich expands on that, and maybe I'll come back to that next week. But there's, I think, an important message for us there as well. Whatever your background, wherever you come from, you can overcome it. That's important. And therefore, it's Yitzchak is the son of Avrohom. Avrohom holidays Yitzchak. We started a family. We're going to go in one direction. And that direction is away from the negative influences they come from to make a completely new people, a completely new hashkafa, a new philosophy, to stand in a couple of 100 years' time at Mount Sinai and create Cloud and Strong, who, when we get it right, is going to inspire the whole world. I wish you all a very good Shabbos.